Hi everybody, Norman Van Aken here, and we've lost a giant in the world of gastronomy. Michel Gerard passed away yesterday, and many people will not know his name here in the United States, but in France they certainly would, and many of the people who have been involved with and touched passionately by the world of cuisine certainly would know of the work of Michel Gerard. This is his primary cookbook, and I bought this book when it first came out, the first edition, and these books here are here because there was kind of this flurry of me buying books in the beginning part of when I finally moved from being a diner chef or an all-night barbecue chef into becoming a chef that really understood that to certainly become and get as far as I wanted to become, I needed to study really hard. The William Morrow Company books, these four all came out within at the most 2 years of each other, right around 1988 and 1990. This one, the original one came out in 1978. In the prologue, Michel Gerard writes, "As a child in our little town, I had my first gastronomic experience at the age of 5. I remember going daily to the local restaurant, only a couple of, I love this, eclair lengths from my home." That is a chef's way of saying things. "And stationing myself by the kitchen window, there I would sing at the top of my lungs until my friend, the chef, appeared at the window and threw me some of the pastries left over from the previous day. I never really knew whether this was a spontaneous act of generosity on his part or just a way to get me to stop singing." This man was not only a genius in the kitchen, but also a fun-loving person. As I say, these are part of my treasure book series. These are the books that taught me to see and think about cuisine in fundamental ways. He gets right into it with the methods of cooking. Remember, I'm a young chef. I haven't been to school. And the two main principles, and he says these two main principles are cooking by sealing, saucement, I would imagine that's how it's pronounced, or without browning. Essentially, just getting right down to the elemental aspects of the way we cook. When I wrote my first book, 7 years after this book entered my life, I had a part in the book definitely influenced by what he was doing here. And instead of by sealing and without browning, I talked about it being shock and seduction. Well, you can look up that. It's Feast of Sunlight, that book. Jumping over, this man's work also appears in this fabulous book, The Great Chefs of France. And I know this book is a favorite among people like David Kinch, Charlie Trotter loved this book, Emerald loved this book, so many people love this book. It can be found online. There's the names of the chefs. Can you see that, camera lady? Come on in if you need to. There's the names of the chefs featured in the book. This book, ahead of its time for the fact that the co-authors, Anthony Blake and Quentin Crew was a photographer, and this book is loaded with photography. But we're on the topic primarily of Chef Michel Gerard, who, like I say, he just passed on. A beautiful picture of him here in his kitchen window. But I want to go over some words that he put in this book. He was talking about a time of change for him. He says it was during this time that he met, actually the authors are saying this, it was during this time that he met Jean Delavan, who now runs, back then, it's a beautiful restaurant that I can't pronounce the name of, whom he regards as his spiritual father. We both felt that cuisine, this is Gerard speaking now, we both felt that cuisine needed a push to get it out of the codified straitjacket imposed on it by the followers of Escoffier. The point was not that Escoffier was wrong. Indeed, Gerard believes it impossible to create cuisine of any quality without having studied Escoffier, but that chefs thinking to put on a particular dish merely looked it up in Escoffier and slavishly followed the recipe. No, to vary it was to fall from grace. Delavigne, who was largely self-taught, inspired Gerard to question such dogma and to speculate on the possibilities of a freer cuisine. Well, you can imagine how those were magical words to myself. Again, we had no internet, we had no Food Network, we didn't have the things that are out there. So books were the way we began to see into the world of the chefs that we were so wowed by. I mean, even a picture like this, I must have seen this picture, studied this picture 1,000 times. The man is in his study. There's books on the bookshelf. There's his wife. And it's sometime before service, probably in the morning when he's just having his coffee. And then, oh my gosh, this beautiful, elegant cuisine, the food on these plates, it still stands up today, which sometimes the evolution of the way food looks is, things can look dated quickly. And I mentioned his sense of humor. Here's a fabulous photo of that's Michel Gerard dancing with his date, Paul Bocuse. Bocuse looking just stone-faced and the way he could. And then Gerard smiling just impishly. Such a cool thing. Such a beautiful testimony to their friendship. And then more pictures and more text. I love this book. It is one of my Bible books, and I've already done this one. Now we get into the Haberlines and on and on and on. I could spend an easy afternoon with this book all over again because it means that much to me. Treasure book. Treasure Chef, Michel Gerard. There's one more thing I wanted to share with you before we go, and that's this. Like I said at the top, he's just passed on. Now, when he wrote this book, James Beard gave it a great blurb here. When he wrote this book, and again, what did I say? 1980, originally in 79, he wrote, so 37 years ago. He writes at the end of his prologue, "In a later life, when I am forced to abandon this world for another, where I and my friends will meet among other clouds at the table of the heavenly host, I will perhaps dare to ask him to grant me the rank of apprentice for all eternity in the kitchen of angels." I love that. I love the humility of that, where he's going to ask, even though he is so incredibly accomplished, he's going to ask to be an apprentice all over again. You don't become a chef of this magnitude without having that humility in your heart. I don't believe you do. So check it out. It's still a beautiful book, even though it's got a few years on it, like some of us. I'll talk to you soon. Back with another treasure book before long. Goodbye, everybody. And rest in peace, Michel Gerard.